If you're watching this video, you're probably run into one of the biggest problems that most of our Cricut users have, and that is how to master intricate cuts on my Cricut. Well, you've stumbled upon the right video. My name's Alicia. I'm going to show you how you can master all of your intricate cuts with a couple of tips and tricks that we have learned along the way. If you are ready to learn some new little tips and hacks for making the best out of your intricate cuts, go ahead and keep watching. We have spent hours upon hours cutting delicate, dainty cuts using our Cricut, and we found that there are a few different variables that play into mastering an intricate cut, and that's why we wanted to make this video for you all, because a lot of times we'll post projects and the names are teeny tiny, or we'll make cards and the cuts are so small, and people ask us all the time, they're like, how did you even cut that with your Cricut? Well, I'm going to tell you all today the best way to do it. We're going to go over cardstock, we're going to go over HTV, and we're going to cover adhesive vinyl as well. So the main thing that I want to start with is the materials that you're using. The material you're using is basically the foundation for whatever you're making. And what I mean by that is if you start off with a low quality material, you're setting yourself up for failure from the get-go. And so when I say low quality, I don't mean cheap as in the price or anything like that. I just mean the quality of the actual material that you're using. So we're talking high quality cardstock. We use Ashley Falco's Celebration Warehouse, which I will link below for you all. That is our favorite cardstock to use. In terms of heat transfer vinyl, we love to use the Caesar Easy Weed. It cuts like butter. And then for adhesive vinyl, we like to use the Starcraft or the Oracal 651. So if you've got a notebook and you've got a pen, go ahead, get it out, start taking notes. This is the only way that you're going to be able to master these cuts. So you're going to want to start good foundation. We want to have the best products. These products that I'm recommending for you all right now are tried and true. We use them on a daily basis here in the studio. And this allows us to really work through these intricate cuts a lot easier so that we're not dealing with bad product. We know the products work. And if we're having other issues, we know it's not the product, it's probably the way that we're cutting it. Now that we've talked about the brands that we love and the specific types of materials, I will say that if you are working with just vinyl, let's just talk about vinyl for now, and you are wanting to make a very small, let's say like a small wood sign, and there's lots of delicate words on there, if you all can use HTV, which is heat transfer vinyl, I'm gonna always recommend that you grab HTV when you're making a delicate cut. You can use adhesive vinyl, but weeding it is a lot harder. HTV already has that built-in transfer tape on it. So if you can choose between adhesive vinyl and heat transfer vinyl, I'm always gonna say go with heat transfer vinyl. It's gonna weed a lot better for those little tiny cuts. Like if you're doing a script name or something like that, it's got that built-in transfer. So it has something to stick to while you're weeding it, which makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to show you a couple of projects that we have used with these different products, and that way you can kind of see how really delicate and intricate you can get with your Cricut. So you can see here we've got a couple different Christmas items that we've made in the past. You can see we have these tiny little branches on this Christmas card. Y'all, this is crazy. So we did cut these with our Cricut, so you can do it. It can be done. Even these little tiny berries were all cut using our Cricut. And the reason we were successful is because we used that Ashley Falco Celebration Warehouse cardstock, and we also used some of the tips I'm going to share in this video. Now, I've got something like this, which is an adhesive vinyl ornament. And you can see, obviously, there are lots of little tiny bits and pieces to this design. This is adhesive vinyl. Now, if you're working with a plastic ornament, obviously you can't use heat transfer vinyl. So this is an instance when you would want to choose adhesive vinyl versus heat transfer vinyl, because the base is going to melt if you put heat transfer vinyl on it. But if you're working with something like a wood sign where you can apply heat to it, or a textile where you need to adhere the HTV to the fabric, obviously HTV is going to be the answer there. Okay, so in order to keep us on track, I'm just gonna go ahead and cover each of these separately. So I'm gonna walk you through an intricate cut with heat transfer vinyl first, and then we can do the cardstock and then the adhesive vinyl. I'm gonna walk you through the cut settings and all that. So go ahead, buckle up, get your notepads out, get your pens out, and be ready to take some really good notes. Something we run into a lot when we're making craft projects is using a very delicate script text that we want to cut out to maybe make a label or to apply to our project. I want to show you all a font that we use a lot. It's called Flexibility. Let me type out a word here, and we're just going to change this font to a more delicate font. Flexibility, okay. So imagine this word is at 1.8 inches by just under an inch tall. So this is tiny, you all. This is a very small word. I'm just gonna zoom in so we can really get a good look at it. There are a couple different ways that we could go about this. So we were planning to cut this out of HTV for a hypothetical project. And a couple things that I like to do whenever I'm in the canvas portion of my design space is to make my word whatever size you need it. Go ahead, size your word as big or as small as you need it to be. And then something that I've been doing a lot lately is go up here to your offset function. You see this drop down menu? We're gonna just drop that down. And this blue line around here, it's adding an offset. That is way too big. So we're gonna shrink this down to a 0.02 maybe. And look where that blue line went. So that made it a little bit thicker, but I still want it to be a little bit smaller because I want the middles of those letters to still be there. And then I'm going to hit apply. Now, that made our word a little bit thicker. I don't even cut that first one. I'm gonna change the color so you all can really see. I don't even cut that first one we typed out. I would just cut this because it still looks just as good. You're still getting that font, and the cut is gonna be a lot easier whenever you get to these really thin areas, and it's gonna cut a lot nicer for you. So that's my first little tip. Add an offset to your word and then just cut the offset. So you won't even cut this. You can hide it, and then you would only cut this offset portion. Okay, so let's go to the Make It screen, and we are gonna talk about what cut settings to use. Now, obviously, we're gonna need to mirror our image. So I'm going to select mirror. We're gonna select continue. We're cutting just using a standard Explorer 3 machine today. So for heat transfer vinyl, when I'm making very small cuts, I'd like to use the everyday iron-on cut setting, but a lot of times I will go in here and hit less pressure. And so this agitates that heat transfer vinyl just a little bit less, but it still allows it to cut all the way through the vinyl. So I'm gonna hit less pressure there, and we're gonna be using a fine point blade. Now, one thing that I have found to help a ton is to replace my fine point blade periodically, especially if I'm doing a lot of delicate cuts. So I just have some replacement blades here. I'm gonna pop that out, put a new one in, and this is going to ensure that my blade is not the reason that my intricate cut does not work. So I've got a new blade in there, and then I'm just gonna pop that back into clamp B. Okay, and then we've just got to put our heat transfer vinyl on to our mat. Now I am using our Caesar. Easy Weed is our favorite one to use today. So we are going to be using Caesar Easy Weed. Like I discussed before, this is the foundation for a good, successful, intricate cut. So I'm gonna burnish it down. This is also very important. You wanna make sure it is burnished down really well. You don't wanna have any bubbles underneath where you're cutting because that's gonna mess up where the blade is cutting. Now we're only doing a small word up here in the corner, so I really just wanna make sure that this top corner is very flat and smoothed out. And then we are going to put this into our Cricut machine. Okay, so it has cut, but before we remove it, I want to make sure that it did cut all the way through the vinyl. So I'm just taking a pin tool and lifting up, and you can see the middle of that letter came out just fine, and it looks like it cut great, you all. The pin tool that I just mentioned, this is a weeding tool that we absolutely love for intricate cuts. It looks like a pin, but when you open it up, it has this teeny tiny little pinpoint right here, which allows you to grab all of the little delicate middles of those letters. So we love to keep these on hand. I'll link this below for you all as well. We get ours from 143 Vinyl and we love them. We have tons sitting all around. That way we can weed those intricate cuts whenever we need to. What I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna cut around our word and remove this excess vinyl. We really didn't need the whole sheet. I'm just gonna take it off. Okay. Now we are going to weed this together so you all can see in real time how easy it can be to master an intricate cut on HTV. All right, so we weeded it out. I'm gonna pull this off of the mat. Y'all, look how delicate that is. So don't feel like you can't do it. It just takes a little bit of adjusting. Make sure you're using that less pressure on the everyday iron-on when you're working with HTV, and also using that offset still allows us to have that beautiful font, and it looks really nice and everything weeded like butter. All right, so let's say that we wanted to cut the same exact word out of adhesive vinyl. So this is not heat activated vinyl. This is just your standard adhesive vinyl. We're gonna be using our StarCraft brand, okay? And I'm just gonna cut this same exact word. But something that I really like to do when I'm working with adhesive vinyl is to add a weeding box around my word. So what that means is come over here to your basic shapes. We're just gonna steal a square, okay? I'm gonna unlock this and we can send it to the back just so we can see our word. And I'm gonna resize this really close to our word. Let me change the color so you all can see. We're just going to kind of butt it up next to the word, just like that. And then you can select them both and attach them. So we're gonna go to Make It. Now with adhesive vinyl, we're gonna be using a slightly different cut setting, and it's gonna sound crazy, but we love to use the washi sheet cut setting for adhesive vinyl intricate cuts. So you're gonna browse on materials, type in washi. So this is similar to like washi tape, but the washi sheet is the one that you're gonna select. We're gonna hit done. And then you can keep it at default pressure. I find sometimes I run into needing a little bit more pressure, but default works most of the time for me. So if you find that the default doesn't work, add a little bit more pressure and try it that way. But it should be fine just on that default pressure. So you're just gonna use that fine point blade, okay? And then I'm gonna just cut off a small corner of this adhesive vinyl because we don't need the whole thing. I just need a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to put it up in the corner where our cut's gonna be at. You wanna make sure, just like the HTV, that this is completely smoothed down. You don't want any bubbles. You don't want anything on the mat underneath the vinyl that's gonna raise it up any, because it will not cut as good. And then we're gonna load this into our Cricut. Now that box that we put around the word is gonna allow us to weed this so much easier, and you guys are gonna see what I'm talking about here in just a second. So before I remove it, I wanna make sure that it cut all the way through. So I'm just gonna try to remove the middles of my letters, and it looks like it cut fine. So let's go ahead and take it off. And then we don't even have to remove the excess vinyl because y'all, we put that bounding box around it. Let me show you how awesome this is. So we're just gonna lift it up just a little bit. And really, before we even do that, it's good to take your burnishing tool, because that, where we use the fine point blade, it agitates that vinyl and it'll kind of want to lift up the vinyl that it cut out. And so this kind of pushes it back down, and then when we go to weed it, it's gonna stay stuck down better for us, which is particularly important when you're working with intricate cuts. And you can see this L wants to come up a little bit. That's okay, I'm just gonna kind of hold it down. But look, that came up so well, you all. I'm gonna remove the middles of these letters. And you can see adhesive vinyl isn't as easy to work with HTV, but it is doable if you've got the right cut settings down. Okay. And then we can just cut off the excess vinyl and remove it from the mat. And then you can just pull off that little square, and there you have it. Okay, so let's talk about working with cardstock. Now, this size of word isn't necessarily something I would want to cut out of cardstock, but I'm gonna give you a couple different options on what would work best here. So I'm gonna do a test cut for you all so you can see how this cuts using the cut setting that we prefer. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna duplicate this, and I'm going to make an offset of maybe not that big. Let's do a 0.1 offset. What I like to do when I'm working with cardstock, because you can apply adhesive vinyl as well as HTV to cardstock, I like to use this offset as my cardstock portion and then apply the HTV or adhesive vinyl to it, so that you still get that effect. But if you're working on a card or something like that, it gives you kind of like a little bit of depth with the cardstock, if that makes sense. So we're gonna cut this out of cardstock, and we're gonna cut this offset out of cardstock as well, okay? So let's go to the Make It screen. I'm just gonna hide one of these because we only need one. And we're working on a 12 by 12 matte steel. Let's go to continue, and we are gonna use the cardstock for intricate cuts. When I first started working with paper, I didn't even know this cut setting existed, and I'm so glad that I stumbled upon it, because it has helped me so much when I'm working with little tiny pieces and I'm working with cardstock. Make sure you got that new blade in. We're gonna keep it at default pressure. Let's go ahead, we're gonna run this test cut and see what happens. Just like before, make sure there's nothing underneath your cardstock before you go to cut it. Make sure it's completely smoothed down, and then we'll run this through the Cricut. You can see here, whenever you're working with intricate cuts, it's actually going to do 2 passes. This just allows it to do 2 more delicate passes rather than one really heavy, high pressure pass. And that's what allows us to get those small cuts. All right, y'all, the jury is in. So it looks like it cut really good. Now, I have some reverse tweezers here. If you're new to paper crafting, reverse tweezers are so good when you're working with small pieces like this. You squeeze them to open them, and then when you release, they close, so it holds it without you having to like hold pressure like you would with normal tweezers. I'm just gonna pull this up. Y'all be so careful. Okay. I'm gonna go with gravity to get the rest of this off here. And honestly, a light grit mat would have been a better choice for this. Light grit mat and paper usually just go hand in hand. This is just the mat I had with me. And I'm just going to delicately take my reverse tweezers and pull this up. I'm not even gonna worry about trying to weed out the middles of those letters because they're just gonna pop off on their own. And I'm honestly just like loosening all of this up off the mat without trying to yank it all at one time. All right, y'all. Did you think that we could cut that? Look how tiny it is. It's so little, but we did it on the first cut too. So that is just great. I love it. And then if you find that you're just still having issues, like I said earlier, sometimes what I like to do is take my cardstock and we're gonna cut that offset that we put in Design Space. So we're just gonna cut that little offset using a regular medium cardstock cut setting. And so I'm just gonna remove this from our mats. And a lot of times, if I really just cannot get that cut mastered, I will do HTV. So this is just the HTV that we cut earlier. And I'll cut out the offset in cardstock and then line this up. And y'all, you can just use a mini easy press or just a quick heat source and apply a little bit of heat to this. And then you can take it off and you can see here, it still gives us a really pretty effect on something that is super small. So that's just an alternative for you. If you do all of the tips that I taught you all today, you should not have any problems cutting out intricate cuts with your cardstock or your vinyl or anything like that. As you can see, mastering intricate cuts doesn't have to be that hard. You just have to know what cut settings to use. I hope you all learned something new in today's video. Let me know in the comments which hack was your favorite, which tip did you learn that you had never heard of before. I would love to know. And if you have any questions, make sure to drop those in the comments as well. Again, if you all are new here, make sure to subscribe and hit the little post bell so you're notified every time that we make new videos. We would love to see you. And if you are sold on this video and you're like, I want to be a part of this community, we are running our dollar deal right now. For $1, you all can join the Makers Gonna Learn community. You're gonna get access to our website for 7 days. And then at the end of that week, you're gonna become a monthly member. So we would love to have you all. We cannot wait to see you inside the membership. Thank you for joining us today and we will see you next time. Bye.